Hi, and welcome to another episode of Living with FASD. I wanted to let you know before we get going in this week's Candid Conversation that I have been nominated in the Women in Podcasting Awards again this year. I am competing against less than a dozen other podcasts in the society and culture category. And I very much appreciate it if you could click the link in the show notes after you listen or watch today's episode. And it's womenpodcasters.com/awards-voting. Again, the link is going to be in the show notes for your reference. But once you're there, scroll down to the category of society and culture. And then when that drop down menu comes up, you will see my name and the show name. So it's Living with FASD, Patricia Kasper. And I very much appreciate it because winning the category means more visibility for the podcast, which means more people will be learning about FASD or fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, possibly for the first time. So without further ado, I want to welcome back to the mic, Jerrod Brown. Thank you for coming. And
Thanks, Patty.
today's topic,
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. So
You're welcome.
today's topic is lifestyle medicine, which can benefit all of us. We don't, no matter what our age, no matter what level of functioning we have, we don't have to have FASD to benefit from lifestyle medicine. Jerrod, can you tell us more about what that is and how it's distinct from the Western medicine we are all accustomed to?
Yeah, so my goal today is just kind of talking about health and wellness in general, because a lot of us struggle with that. Lots of stress going on, lots of uncertainty in the world. Regardless of who you are, I think you're going to benefit from this today. So, broadly speaking, when we think about like healthy lifestyle behaviors, when you look at that research, what is it? Eating well, getting good sleep, even moral improvement. Anything we can do to instill good moral values in our children is talked about it in that literature. Focusing on interpersonal enhancement and social skills and learning how to manage our stress, but also health responsibility. And basically, what that is, are you someone that goes to your dentist a couple times a year, or haven't you been to the dentist in the last decade? Or are you one to wear sunscreen outside? Or do you go to your doctor for a yearly physical? That's health responsibility in a nutshell. And I think this ties in very nicely to working with folks with FASD. And a lot of the people I've worked with over the years in different organizations and caregivers I've consulted with, unfortunately, all too often, that person with FASD may struggle in some of these areas. So I think it's going to be helpful to be aware of lifestyle medicine. One thing I do want to say today is that I'm not giving any medical advice,
Mhm.
and we're going to be covering a lot of interesting topics again that I think are applicable to any human being. I do have a certification in lifestyle medicine, and I will, if everything goes as planned, by the end of this summer, I'll be done with that master's degree program that we've talked about several times in applied clinical nutrition. So when you think about Patty too, with health, just health and wellness, another term you want to be aware of is health promotion. This is all common sense stuff, but depending on what article you read or what research group, they package it in different ways. So health promotion involves six different components. Health responsibility. So again, how proactive are we? Physical activity. It doesn't mean you have to go out and run a marathon, but most people are pretty safe to go out and go for a light walk. Again, talk to your healthcare provider. Not a lot of research in the FASD world on exercise and FASD. There's a little mention of it. You'll find tons in the autism world, the ADHD world, and even brain injuries. And again, whoever you are, you probably benefit from getting off the couch and moving more. We all do, and getting out and getting natural sunlight. Health promotion, one of the other six is nutrition, stress management, self-actualization, and interpersonal relationships. So you're going to hear common themes today.
Yeah.
Quality of life research is another area I want everyone just to know the basics of. There's a whole line of research literature that talks about quality of life. We can guess what that is. But if you look under that umbrella, it talks about wealth, money, how much money you have has a lot to do with this. Poverty and homelessness is a factor to take into account.
Mhm.
Employment status, housing status, where someone lives, or the lack thereof of housing impacts quality of life. Where does somebody live has a lot to do with this too. The community in which they live is impacted. Physical and mental health, one's educational level, how you spend recreation and leisure time, social belonging. There's a whole line of research literature on if someone doesn't feel like they belong to a social group, that might be just as bad as smoking cigarettes, what it can do on the human body. That's very scary stuff. Religious beliefs fall under this umbrella. Safety considerations and security and freedom are the big components under the quality of life literature.
I think we
Patty,
could
before I
talk for
move on,
weeks
yeah.
on that.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's huge for all of us and stuff. And whatever the person is, if you're a therapist, counselor, caregiver, learning about these things and enhancing this in your own life and your loved ones who have FASD, it's just good common sense in my opinion. Well-being literature is another thing before we move into lifestyle medicine. It's kind of planting the seed here. So think of well-being as almost that umbrella term. What are the different dimensions of well-being? There's a lot of them out there. We have physical well-being. Does someone feel healthy? Or are they dealing with some sort of chronic health condition that's really just impacting their overall quality of life? Economic well-being, good questions to ask people. I mean, do you have enough money to pay your bills? Credit or the lack thereof? Do you have a checking account, savings account? Social well-being, looking at friendship networks, the family system, emotional well-being, psychological. Are you satisfied with your life? Life satisfaction. What does the future look like to you? Do you feel hopeful or does it feel not hopeful? We
I've
just
noticed the last several doctor appointments so that I've had, they hand you a slip of paper in addition to all the others they want your John Hancock on, um,
yeah,
asking a lot of these questions about lifestyle and stressors.
it's huge. And that's kind of ties in very closely to lifestyle medicine. We're really looking at how does someone live their life? And part of lifestyle medicine, we'll talk about that in a minute too, is really understanding holistic approaches. And that's one reason why I've been working on this other degree in nutrition, because I really want to infuse the things I've learned about sleep, the gut, inflammation, nutrition, exercise. It's really holistic. So it's mind body approaches.
Yeah.
We're taking into account not just what's going on in the brain, what's going on in the gut. What does that person eat? What
Mhm.
do they think? All of these things can either positively or negatively impact our thinking, our mood state, our energy, and all of those things. So holistic approaches, very, very helpful. If any of you are interested in like cardiovascular health, I just want to alert you to something called Life's Essential 8. You can find this on the American Heart Association. People may have not heard of this.
I've not heard of
Like,
that.
no, and it's out there. It's just a helpful reminder. Life's Essential 8, you can find this on the American Heart Association, basically is a group of health risk factors and behaviors that are critical to understand as it relates to cardiovascular health. So just our heart working properly. So the Life's Essential 8, diet, physical exercise, does the person smoke cigarettes? What's their sleep health like? Do they are they overweight? What are their blood lipid levels like? What's blood glucose levels like and blood pressure? So the more you can understand life's essential 8 and really get these under control, basically you're supporting cardiovascular health. And anytime you're supporting your heart health, what else are you supporting? brain health, gut health, it's all interconnected. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the foundation, Patty. Any thoughts on that before I get into the weeds with lifestyle medicine?
Oh, no, my mind was spinning in all different directions of things we could have talked about. So
There's a lot out there to think about, but I mean,
I
we can come
figured you
back
were
and
laying it all out and we would, have ample opportunity to explore things as you keep going.
absolutely. So lifestyle medicine, maybe you've heard the term, maybe you haven't. It's very common sense in my opinion, but it's profound as well. So there's six core components or features of lifestyle medicine. Engaging in regular physical activity is one of them. Eating healthy, nutritious foods. It talks a lot about like whole foods, plant-based foods that are kind of like primarily in the diet. I'm not advocating for anyone to go out and change their diet, talk to their doctor, of course. Getting restorative sleep. You and I have had many discussions about sleep over the last few years, and we know
Yeah.
how important that is. And unfortunately, we know too that most people with FASD, if you believe the research, have sleep issues.
They
Another
have
core
sleep
component
issues and they may or may not have dietary issues as well with sensory issues to different tastes or textures, or whether or not they're in tune with their body signals as to whether they're hungry versus when they're full. I mean, there's so many things so many ways that FASD can impact all this.
without a doubt. And not to get too far in the weeds, but there are a good handful of research studies that have been published in the FASD literature about nutrition. And as a whole, it says we got a lot of work to do in this area. I mean, we got a lot of work to do in this country and around the world with eating healthy. I mean, looking at ultra processed foods, the Western diet, but being mindful that folks with neurodevelopmental disorders may be more prone to eating unhealthy diets. And there's a lot of reasons for that that we can talk about another time. But the other components of lifestyle medicine is stress management, really learning how to manage your stress. A lot of people with FASD do struggle with stress management for a variety of reasons. Avoiding harmful and toxic chemicals. A lot of it talks about drugs and alcohol. But I'd add to that list tobacco,
Mhm.
fast food, excessive sugar consumption, overconsumption of caffeine. That's not good at all. And then really honing in on supporting social health and social connection. So those are the six components of lifestyle medicine. And basically, this is not a new term, but there's more and more doctors, healthcare providers are moving in this direction. Allied fields of study are moving in this direction, but we have a long way to go. So if you look at the research literature on lifestyle medicine, it really talks about it as preventative healthcare. So we're not reactive. We want to be proactive to prevent some of these other issues down the road. It focuses a lot on self-care, the whole person care. That's why it ties in very nicely to holistic health. Whole person care, you're taking care of your mind, your body, your spirit, your social health, all of those things. Focusing a lot on prevention and treatment of chronic diseases, educating the individual, using coaching approaches. I love health coaching or strengths-based approaching literature. That can be very, very helpful. Just ask yourself this too, you personally or anybody listening to this, what lifestyle factors are you engaging in that promote your health right now? And what lifestyle factors are you engaging in that may be problematic to your health? And some of these are easier said than done to correct, but just add a lot of self-reflection in this too and self-awareness. And we'll talk briefly about therapeutic lifestyle changes in a minute, but that's something I think if we have any mental health providers here, counselors, coaches, social workers, I think you do well learning about that research as well. So that's the basic components of this. And if you look at lifestyle medicine research, if you pull it apart, what are all the moving parts that this research kind of borrows from or leans on in terms of doing a holistic whole person approach? Well, nutrition science research, Positive psychology. What is that? Understanding positive things we can do to help our clients. Resilience, gratitude, optimism, enhancing emotional intelligence. These are all things rooted in positive psychology. Health and wellness coaching, lifestyle medicine leans on a lot. Exercise science, exercise physiology, addiction medicine, sleep medicine. It really brings all of these fields under one umbrella. So that's one of the reasons why I love lifestyle medicine approaches. Patty, I'll stop there for a minute before I talk about blue zone research and how that factors into this too.
Okay,
Mhm.
never heard of Blue
Yes.
Zone.
You have, once I tell you, I know you have, definitely.
Blue.
Yep. It's a lovely color on you.
So, I have to appreciate our longstanding friendship, Jerrod, and the influence that you've had undoubtedly on many in my audience, but even upon me. So, I never was a big soda person, but I've gotten rid of um, all the Crystal Light, right? I would drink 2 quarts of Crystal Light in a day easily, and I haven't had it in probably a year.
Very proud of you. That makes me
So
very happy to hear that.
yeah, I'm cooking from scratch much more now.
Awesome.
Um, far less, and I hardly ever do fast food, but yeah, just a lot less. There's still probably more processed food than I'd like to have, but sometimes when you're just slaving away at the desk all day, you know, it's
It's hard. We got to be intentional. It's
it
difficult, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't have to be perfect. Look at the harm reduction model. The more we can just kind of taper down and down and down to
yeah,
move more toward health and
yeah,
wellness. And don't beat yourself up, anyone. If you
yeah.
struggle in these areas, we all do, including me. So
Yeah, and I joined our local rec center, which
awesome.
has a pool. So I'm going for walks in the pool instead of around my block because it's so much easier on my joints.
This
So
movement is medicine. It
yeah,
really is, without
yeah.
a doubt.
So it has helped. It has made a difference. So I'm very
Get out that front.
encouraged. I hope that members of the audience have taken similar steps and found similar results. And the good news is there's always progress to be made. Um, but like you said, any distance is progress. And, every step we take builds upon that forward momentum. And I think too that I'm just so pleased to see conversations springing up in the public square about having more intention around healthier lifestyle, around better diet, staying away from processed foods, staying away from the food additives and the dyes and everything else that's part of the ultra processed foods. Um, and even, and I have a lot of friends who have gone vegetarian and vegan over the years, and it works great for them. That's fantastic for them. Um, but even being thoughtful about, well, what chemicals are getting sprayed on all the plants?
Mhm.
Like I've totally cut corn out because corn is one of the most heavily um, sprayed with various substances. And if it, yeah, I just, plus it's really hard on blood sugar, but
Preservatives and pesticide, all those
mhm,
things. And it's a
yeah,
whole nother can of worms, but the more we
yeah,
can move away from all of that stuff, I mean, the human body typically benefits.
yeah, yeah. All right. So what is blue space health?
Blue zones,
Blue
blue
zone.
zones. So I bet all of you have heard of blue zones, but maybe not that term. So blue zones are regions around the world where people live usually the longest, like over 100. You'll find one in Japan, Italy, Costa Rica, Greece. There's only one, I believe, in California in the
Hello,
United States.
Melinda.
So yes, that is. Yep, yep.
Yeah, San Bernardino County.
Yep.
Loma Linda.
There are documentaries out there, there's websites, there's
Yeah,
books. I love learning about blue zones and
yeah,
what are the common factors among blue zones. If you look at all these blue zones, you look at all the good stuff you can find online and the research, well, what do they do in most of these places? They're eating healthy. They're typically not like going out there and overeating tons of food. So they're being more wise in the way they eat. They're slowing down.
mhm.
They're moving more naturally too, where you're just out there gardening and you're walking with people and you're not like, and I love the gym and stuff, but typically you're not like going to the gym 30, 45 minutes a day running on the treadmill. They're just out there moving more and getting
Yeah.
that natural sunlight. They get good rest.
Mhm,
They really hone in on family connection,
mhm.
which is very, very important, and community involvement and support. So really you're not doing it in isolation and really focusing on finding your life purpose. Those are some of the common features among blue zones. It's really interesting research, but can we apply that to what we're doing in our own life? Could you create a little mini blue zone in your own household or in your own community? I mean, why not? I'm not saying it's going to change overnight, but the more we can implement these practices, the better off we're going to be. If
Let's
we, yeah, please,
can we break that down a little bit for the FASD, application? I'm
yeah,
thinking of, um, so many, because we have so many characteristics that overlap with both the autism and the ADHD. I
yeah,
think we can borrow the research that we find between those fields of study with all the additives in Western food. What is so predominantly available, the processed foods, yada, yada, yada. And you can see the effect, the negative effect of a lot of these chemicals that find their way into our food, even just forever plastics, upon emotional regulation and just how well we are functioning. Um, so it makes perfect sense that being attentive to that and very intentional would also help those of us with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders of various sorts. Um, and also that feel, you've brought it up a few times about that feeling of inclusion and familial support, feeling embraced and belonging. When our behavior has made us feel isolated, we're rejected by our peers at school or work. Our families are rejected from the community because of that quote unquote bad kid, right? That feeling of isolation. Or if the parents themselves become very shame filled because the quote unquote behavior of one of their kids is very distracting or engenders a lot of attention, unwanted attention, then it's really hard to have any kind of self-esteem, to feel good about oneself, to have any sense of feeling comfortable in your skin, and to not eventually buy into all that negativity, all that negative judgment, self-loathing, and on it goes.
yeah. Any one of all these principles could be applied to folks with FASD.
Mhm.
And again, what you said is another arm of the holistic lens. I mean, we got to focus on all of these things together. So if someone goes to a therapist is not going to have expertise in all of these things. If someone goes to a doctor, they're not going to have all these expertise. That is why we need interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary collaboration from that team lens. And
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of cases I've consulted on where the client has had FASD, they have all the services in the world, but they're missing pieces that people a lot of times don't think about.
Mhm.
They usually have a psychiatrist, social workers, case managers, in-home supports, all very, very important. But very rarely do I hear, well, the person is also working with a nutritionist. They're also working with maybe a exercise coach or someone in weight management or whatever it is. So bringing those folks to the table as well. They're not any more important than a social worker, psychologist, all of those,
Mhm.
but they complement each other very, very nicely.
Yeah.
So from a holistic lens, just some things to think about is thinking about the modern way of living in our country. It's not good. The research says, what are modern lifestyle habits we want to be aware of and identifying the people we work with? Well, the research says really digging into the client's unhealthy eating practices, asking questions about prolonged sitting. Tell me about how long you sleep at night. Well, these are cases I've consulted on where I've heard like the client's in bed 16 hours a day.
Mm.
Okay, you're in bed about 16 hours a day. Then what do you do when you get up? Well, I have breakfast, take my meds, I go back, take a nap for 2 hours. So in a 24-hour period of time, they might be laying in bed 18 hours. Again, this isn't everybody. These are just some cases I've consulted on. Prolonged sittings, prolonged sedentary behaviors are just as bad as smoking cigarettes on the body. Eating at irregular times, we don't think about that too. I do a lot of work in the area of chrononutrition. My colleagues and I are actually writing an article right now on that. That's all about meal timing. And basically, what that research says, if people skip a lot of meals every day, they engage in a lot of emotional eating. So they deal with a lot of stress through sugar sweetened beverages, fast food. They consume food really late at night or right before bed. That can be very hard on the body metabolically. And you understand metabolic health, obviously, but blood sugar dysregulation, cholesterol issues, it disrupts the sleep. Equally important when we talk about kind of the negative things is understanding the adverse kind of social determinants of poor mental health.
Mhm.
That's a big umbrella. Food insecurity,
Yeah.
income inequality, racism, marginalization, chronic unemployment, not having access to high quality health and health care. These are all things that can make our mental health worse. This can make anybody worse, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Holistically speaking, too, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we've done some segments on this, but really understanding the gut brain connection. Again, what's going on in the gut? If the gut is not working properly, that person's constipated all the time, diarrhea, bloating, gas, they are dealing with irritable bowel syndrome, all of those things
Mhm.
don't just hurt the gut, hurts the brain. It's linked with depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
all of those things. So if you take all the negatives, we talked about good stuff, negatives, and you end on positives, again, how do we start looking at this through a lifestyle medicine, a holistic, integrative lens? What do we do? Well, a couple practical things that are easy for all of us to do, and I'm guilty of this. Self-compassion can be very helpful in healing. If you beat yourself up emotionally when you screw up or make a mistake and you start having negative thinking, that's not good for your body. It dries up the inflammation. It's not good for your gut. Self-compassion is medicine. It's very easy to do, but it takes practice. It takes intentionality. So if you practice self-compassion, you start looking in the mirror and maybe saying nice things about yourself, or instead of when you screw up, don't say mean things about yourself. You know what? I screwed up. I'm only human. Who hasn't? Start rewiring the brain to have your brain go to nice stuff about yourself. Because if we can practice self-compassion on a continuous basis, the research says it brings down the stress. It helps us recover physiologically. easier when we get angry or upset. So if you're listening to this, you get riled up easily, someone makes you really mad and your heart's racing, self-compassion can help you recover from that much more quickly. People that have higher levels of self-compassion, Patty, are way more likely to brush their teeth, take their meds as prescribed, manage their weight, go for a walk. The list goes on and on and on. So self-compassion, very important. I think a good cousin or brother or sister to that is just start promoting positive self-talk.
Mhm.
Practice it. You may not believe it. Over time, neuroplasticity research, great stuff too. You start rewiring the brain, you start believing it then as well. So I got a few more I can share, but I'll stop. Any thoughts
Okay.
on that, my friend?
Well, one of the things that came to mind was just reflecting back on the journey that I took in identifying that I am on this spectrum. Even before I sought out a confirmation diagnosis, once those pieces fell into place for me, I was able to look back on my past and say, okay, this makes sense now. Being able to understand why I did some of the things that I've done, why I have some of the quirks that I do. It makes sense and it allows for that compassion. And for me to have that self-compassion just as I would for someone else who had traumatic brain injury, which is basically what this is. Um, and that physically, I started feeling better from that time moving
Huge.
forward.
It
It's not
helps
a
release
coincidence.
shame. It releases shame.
Mhm.
You're not, no one's a bad person. Maybe you
We're
made
not
some,
broken.
we all made bad choices, but
Mhm.
maybe making those bad choices were outside of our ability to make good choices because of the FASD in some cases until we learn other skills and choice making and being less impulsive and all those things. And
Yeah. And
so
so
getting an
I
accurate
may have
diagnosis, huge.
challenge A, B, and C, and yet look at what I've been able to do with my life. Look
Yeah,
how far I've come despite blah, blah, blah. Those that it's very important to be able to do that, to flip
huge.
that and see the glass half full instead of half empty. And
Very huge.
just making that paradigm shift is enough to get you feeling physically better.
Huge. Yep. Our
Yeah.
thinking and our body are interconnected. And that's why I also love psychoneuroimmunology research. That was the very first podcast you and I did together.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. But another thing, I know we're running up on time, just a few more things for folks to think about on a positive angle is another reason why I love lifestyle medicine is that it ties in again very nicely to positive psychology. And you kind of honed in on this, but how do we promote positive psychological and emotional well-being? Well, we enhance our self-esteem, our self-concept. We build our self-efficacy. The more we believe in ourselves, that's going to be great on a lot of levels. We focus on self-image enhancement, optimism. If someone wakes up every day and they are negative, moody, grouchy, what's the point? The future doesn't matter. Then what do you think that's going to do to your body? If we wake up positive, thinking good things, optimism, having joy, it takes intentionality. It's easier said than done. In the beginning, I mentioned therapeutic lifestyle changes and being around animals and pet ownership is wonderful for mental health. And there's a whole line of research on gut health and pets, but we don't have time to talk about that. But
Yeah. Everybody meet Henry.
hi, Henry.
Hi, bud.
Therapeutic lifestyle changes would be wonderful for all mental health, behavioral health providers to understand. Why do I say that? if you just Google therapeutic lifestyle changes, it talks about the use of exercise, nutrition, encouraging people to get out in nature more, enhancing relationships, engaging in positive recreation, teaching relaxation, stress management, focusing on religious or spiritual involvement if appropriate for that client, and encouraging others to maybe get outside of themselves and volunteer or give back to others. These are all things that can be very, very helpful in enhancing one's emotional, one's behavioral health, all very, very good things. That's about all I have. I can definitely give a few more. I guess one thing I would say, and I said it once today, but I'll plan to see it with you, Patty, too. I would love to come back if you'd ever allow me to do one on neuroplasticity and what does that mean?
Yes,
And
please.
how do we promote positive neuroplasticity? How do we rewire, make new connections in the brain that can
Mhm.
be good for anybody,
Yeah.
especially folks with FASD?
Yeah, I think that would be a fantastic episode because more than anything else, I think the idea of neuroplasticity or the ability for the brain to change its wiring is going to provide a lot of hope,
Yes,
which people need, and
absolutely.
these days more than ever.
Yep, yep, definitely. So yeah, I can definitely do that another time. And the plant is seed with neuroplasticity. I mean, the neuroplasticity research ties in very nicely to what we talked about today, but getting exercise, getting good sleep, eating healthy, managing our stress, having a mindset of happiness and gratitude and meditation and empowerment. These are all things that can be very good for neuroplasticity.
Yeah, as is petting a kitty.
Absolutely. It's calming. Anything you do to calm the brain and body down and laugh and smile more and be around positive people and animals and music and art,
Yeah.
all good stuff.
Jerrod, I'm so glad you were able to come on today and talk to us about this very important topic. So
Welcome.
very
Thank you for
much
having me
appreciate
back.
it. All
I'll
right.
be rooting
So
for you with that award. I'm hoping, yeah, I hope
thank
you get
you.
it. That'd be
Yes.
awesome.
Voting is open through the end of the month, everyone. Again, that's womenpodcasters.com/awards-voting. Please vote for only one podcast. If you vote for multiple podcasts, then all your votes are going to get tossed. So again, the important thing for me is that we increase visibility, and because that's what's going to raise awareness in our country and the world more than anything else. So thank you for being such a terrific audience in general. And because Jerrod is a frequent guest, if you have any specific questions about lifestyle medicine, or any of the subtopics that we talked about today, please feel free to email me at livingwithfasdpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to reach me for coaching or training purposes, please visit my website at www.patriciakasper.com. Kasper's with a K. And I hope everyone has a fantastic week. Thank you in advance for your vote. And Jerrod, thank you for your time today. I
You're
hope
welcome,
you
my
have a
friend.
fantastic couple weeks till we can get together again.
Likewise, thank you. Thank you, everyone.